Welcome, listeners. Let's dive into the shifting dynamics of NATO and U.S. military spending. The alliance, created in 1949 to counter the Soviet Union, now faces new financial commitments. Dr. Evans, why are member states being pushed to increase their defense budgets to 5% of GDP?
Great question. The U.S. has long shouldered a disproportionate share of NATO's defense costs, often exceeding 3.5% of GDP, while most European allies lagged behind. Trump's push for higher contributions led to intense debate, and now, facing new threats, NATO countries are agreeing to raise their spending targets as a show of unity and deterrence.
That's a dramatic shift, considering the backlash when Trump first demanded just 2%. What's motivating this sudden willingness to boost budgets?
The Russian invasion of Ukraine and rising tensions with China have made the security landscape more precarious. European countries now realize that underfunding their militaries leaves them vulnerable, and U.S. pressure has forced a reassessment of how collective defense is financed.
Let's transition to missile defense. The U.S. just announced a $1 trillion defense budget, including the Advanced Golden Dome project. How does this system compare to existing defenses like NORAD or Israel's Iron Dome?
The Golden Dome aims to integrate radar, satellite, and interceptor technologies for near-total coverage against ballistic and hypersonic threats. Unlike NORAD, which focuses on early warning, or Iron Dome, which handles short-range missiles, the Golden Dome is designed for continental-scale protection, reflecting lessons from recent conflicts like Iran's missile barrage on Israel.
Some critics argue this level of investment is excessive, questioning the likelihood of a direct land invasion. Are these concerns justified?
While a land invasion is unlikely, the threat of missile attacks or cyber warfare is growing. Missile defense isn't just about today's risks, but preparing for unpredictable future technologies. Think of it like buying insurance, expensive but crucial when disaster strikes.
Moving north, Trump's renewed interest in Greenland has sparked intense debate. What makes Greenland so strategically valuable to the U.S.?
Greenland holds a pivotal Arctic location, offering direct access to the Arctic Ocean and critical shipping lanes. Beyond geography, it possesses vast deposits of rare earth minerals, gold, and other resources. As polar ice recedes, these assets become more accessible, promising both economic and military advantages.
How does this compare to other territorial interests, like the Panama Canal?
While the Panama Canal is vital for global trade, Greenland's value lies more in untapped resources and military positioning. The U.S. already has a military base there, but full control would ensure dominance over emerging Arctic routes as well as deny rivals like China a foothold in the region.
Let's talk about the diplomatic hurdles. Denmark currently governs Greenland, but Norway once had a claim. Why is this such a complicated issue for all parties involved?
Greenland's colonial history is tangled. Denmark colonized it, but Norway was once in union with Denmark and could argue for historical rights. However, since 2009, Greenland has achieved broad autonomy, though Denmark still controls defense and foreign policy. Any transfer of sovereignty would require unprecedented legal and political negotiations.
And what about the local population's wishes?
Greenlanders increasingly desire independence, but economic dependency on Denmark makes this challenging. Any U.S. acquisition plan would need to address local self-determination to avoid international backlash and ensure legitimacy.
Shifting focus, Trump's push to buy 15 icebreakers from Finland signals a broader Arctic strategy. Why are icebreakers so critical in this context?
Icebreakers are the workhorses of the Arctic, enabling year-round navigation and access to remote areas. As the Arctic becomes more navigable, whoever controls the icebreakers can maintain supply lines, support mineral extraction, and project power. For reference, Russia currently operates 40 icebreakers, dwarfing the U.S. fleet.
So, investing in icebreakers is about more than just transportation?
Absolutely. It's a strategic necessity for resource extraction, military presence, and even search and rescue operations. In a hypothetical scenario where China or Russia seeks a stronger Arctic presence, robust icebreaker capability is essential for U.S. response and influence.
International reactions to the U.S. interest in Greenland have been strong, with Denmark voicing concern. How does this compare to other territorial disputes, such as China and Taiwan?
There are parallels in how great powers seek to expand their spheres of influence. However, unlike the Taiwan situation where China threatens force, the US is pursuing diplomatic and economic levers, like offering $20 billion to Denmark. This reflects a preference for soft power, though underlying tensions remain.
Is there a risk of wider conflict if the US pushes too hard?
While unlikely, European allies might resist if they see US moves as destabilizing. But given the US's role in NATO, most countries would avoid direct confrontation over Greenland, prioritizing alliance unity over territorial disputes.
Let's explore the economic angle. With Greenland's population under 60, what impact could US investment have on local communities and the broader American economy?
US acquisition could transform Greenland's infrastructure and living standards. For example, a $200 billion investment in mining could unlock trillions in rare earths and gold, according to geological surveys. This would not only benefit the US, but potentially raise average incomes and improve services for Greenlanders.
Some worry about exploitation or neocolonialism. How can these concerns be addressed?
Transparent agreements and profit-sharing mechanisms are key. By allowing Greenlanders to retain a share of mining revenues and maintain cultural autonomy, the U.S. could frame its role as a partnership rather than outright takeover.
Another critical factor is China's growing Arctic ambitions. Greenlandic officials have reportedly explored deals with China. How does this influence U.S. calculations?
China's Polar Silk Road initiative aims to secure shipping lanes and resource access. If Beijing gains a foothold in Greenland, it could undermine U.S. and NATO security. This prospect strengthens the argument for U.S. involvement, much like the Monroe Doctrine justified U.S. action in the Panama Canal to block Chinese influence.
So, Arctic policy is increasingly tied to great power competition?
Exactly. The Arctic is no longer a remote afterthought, but a frontline in the competition for resources, routes, and global influence. Strategic denial of Chinese access is central to U.S. policy calculations.
Let's discuss possible scenarios for U.S. acquisition of Greenland. Is a peaceful purchase feasible, or could tensions escalate to forceful measures?
History shows land deals like the Louisiana Purchase are possible, but Greenland's partial autonomy complicates matters. While outright military action is highly improbable, diplomatic leverage such as conditional aid or security guarantees could sway Denmark and Greenland. However, any move must respect international law and Greenlander consent.
Would NATO or EU countries intervene militarily to prevent a U.S. takeover?
It's doubtful. Their security depends on U.S. partnership. The more likely scenario is protracted negotiation, with the U.S. offering financial incentives and developmental aid rather than confrontation.
As we wrap up, how do these Greenland ambitions fit into the broader context of America's economic recovery, security concerns, and presidential legacy?
The push for Greenland reflects a blend of economic opportunity, strategic security, and personal legacy building, especially for leaders like Trump. With the U.S. economy rebounding, low inflation, and strong GDP growth, Arctic expansion is seen as the next frontier. However, balancing local interests, allied relationships, and global stability will determine the outcome.
So, the story of Greenland is far from over?
Absolutely. Expect ongoing negotiation, geopolitical maneuvering, and public debate. The Arctic's fate will shape not just maps, but the future balance of power in the 20th century.